come on. There you go. You get to say yes or no, I guess, on your own computers. So I'm going to try to keep us to about 45 minutes because, we're all tired at the end of the day and it gets dark at, 3 o'clock now. So we like to hunker in, at least I like to hunker in. First of all, I want to say I think what we are doing here is amazing. And that we have been very successful so far in assimilating all of you different characters in everything from the Sunday services to, Petra's going to be involved in some non-Sunday services, to our clergy people doing their thing, and, Sonia and Jim and Sean and Ruth kind of working on building up skills to do the Sunday service. I have heard, I don't know if anybody else has heard otherwise, but I've heard nothing negative yet, and I don't think we will, about this experiment. And you all have committed in just different ways to make this happen. And Sonia and I felt it was important to check in, as we have before, and to continue to kind of make sure we're on the same page, make sure any concerns from anybody can be addressed, make sure you all are getting what you need, both spiritually and educationally, from Sonia to support what you're doing. So it's just good to check in. And one of the ways I wanted to check in, and I'm not sure that everybody is completely aware of where we are with Sonia in our process of developing this program, of having lay leaders and other clergy be part of a team. Not just, again, I want to remind us, you all are not just substitute preachers. We're asking you to be part of a team, and that means communication and shifting around and all that. But the reality is that Sonia was not to be with us this year, but we nudged her in a variety of ways and kept her with the understanding she'd be with us through the end of June, which seemed a lot farther away last June than it feels now, as time is wont to do. And a major part of her goal would be to strengthen this clergy lay team of Sunday morning and other times of the week spiritual leaders, because that's what you really all are spiritual leaders, in some in small behind the scenes ways and some in bigger ways. So we have now 8 months before us in which Sonia can continue to work with you. Do I know what's going to happen after Sonia leaves? Not a clue how we're going to do this, but I do know that if we can continue to strengthen you all, and I'm part of you because I lead the occasional worship service as well, is if we can continue to strengthen ourselves as this eclectic team of lovely people, then we will be facing a better future because of Sonia's presence and leadership with us after July 1st than if we didn't have that leadership and you all being willing to work on it. So that's a little reality therapy for us all. I don't think any amount of money is going to persuade Sonia to stay after July 1. Who knows? I mean, things change. Who knows? But it is not the current plan. And the current plan is to enable us to be leaders of the spiritual realm of the church. And how that ultimately looks, obviously, we don't know. But does that come as a surprise to anybody hearing that? Okay. We don't like it exactly because, I think some of us would like the old-fashioned thing and just have Sonia happen to live in Claremont and be willing to take this on. But the reality is every church is going to face this eventually. And if we can be leaders in showing how this can work, and showing how it not only works, but it actually really strengthens the spiritual life of the members of the church. I think we could go on the road. Maybe we can make some money going on the road with it. So another thing pertinent to you all is that you know that you got the survey. Hopefully, did everybody get the survey in an email? Only 3 people to date have filled it out. So don't don't let it fall off your radar screen. Please go ahead and fill that out, and that will speak to us also about, because a lot of those questions are about how's this working for people. We've shifted up a lot of things, and as we see the surveys coming back, are we willing to shift and pivot to, and in some cases, kind of go back to some old ways that some people would like to see? Are we willing to do that kind of shifting around? So hopefully by the end of this week, we will have at least a majority of people having filled out that survey, and we'll have a sense of, how people are feeling about a lot of things. Yeah. People are funny about surveys, though. So that's just the background to our meeting. How, before we get into Sonia's and my agenda, and some direction and some, trying to get us a little more cohesive, do any of you want to say anything about how you're feeling about the parts you're participating in, how that feels to you, support you might want that you're not getting, support you might be getting that you don't want? Is there anything from you all before we move into some more stuff? Susan, were you?
Yeah, I would say, just to, I'm very in touch with my own internal process in terms of, I've been an ordained minister for 34 years, and I've been preaching probably 36 years. And I was educated and fashioned in a certain sense of, what a sermon is and what preaching is about. And as much as I'm trying to break out of that, what? I thought somebody said something.
No, there was just a glitch, I think.
So what I'm trying to say is that I find myself wanting to do new things, but then, because of the ingrained habit I have of a certain, expectation of what preaching is and what a sermon is, it's like, well, if I don't want to preach on the lectionary text, what am I going to preach on? And so I could use, I wouldn't mind having a conversation with folks about that, just to let you know that it is a little bit of a struggle. I found it very liberating to be able to use the Haudenosaunee address in September, and to focus on, the creation theme and that. And I love what we're doing. I just have to confess that it doesn't come naturally, because I've been doing it a certain way over half my life.
Could you give us an example of, like, if you were just taking over a church right now, what you do that's different than what we're doing now? What would you keep from what you learned already, from how you've been shaped?
I would say, I talked about preaching as pastoral care. That was a pretty big emphasis, and I was always very big on that. I think what I find most compelling is the feeling of community and relationships and checking in with each other, and kind of maybe speaking some truth to power. But I've always backed away from that. because I don't really have not been able to discern the pulse of the congregation in terms of that. I think I'm a little bit held back by not wanting to step on anybody's toes or, offend anybody. But yeah, I would like to do more with the prophetic voice type of thing, because I never was really allowed to, so to speak.
Hmm.
It just was very frowned upon in my tradition. So yeah, I would say that's all I got.
Hmm.
I'm still working on it.
Interesting. My sister-in-law asked me the other day, so how are you all handling all the political stuff as a church? And I said, well, really right now we're not, because we're so focused on trying these new things that our identity is not currently showing forth in that prophetic voice. I think like I think you mean, Susan. But it was an interesting challenge to have her ask that question. Yeah, like, oh dear, well, I guess not very much.
Right.
Karen, you took yourself off mute. Does that mean you wanted to say something?
Yeah, because I feel kind of like a schmuck that I retired and kind of really retired. And so I have on my calendar all the time the events that are happening at First Congregational. And as the time approaches, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like getting in the car and going to church. So there's this affirmation that I would give myself about the freedom to choose that, and that I feel like a schmuck because I love the people at First Congregational and at some level totally do want to be supportive. So that's all. It's confession. I feel like a schmuck. But I will say it's not like I'm going anywhere else.
Well, you know what, I would like to respond to that, Karen, because one of the beauties of this community is, like, I missed a couple Sundays because I was not feeling great and doing other things, and it's like not everybody shows up every week, and that's okay.
Mhm.
There's a core group, and we have been having quite a few visitors,
That's great.
and whoever shows up shows up. So I invite you
Thank you
not
for
to
that.
think of yourself as a schmuck.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that a lot.
Mhm. My only wish with the attendance is that not everybody would not show up on the same Sunday like last week when we had 12, and this week we had 24.
Oh my
It's like
goodness, wow.
back and forth. I think those were the numbers, give or take. John,
21.
you just
Wow.
raised your hand, didn't you?
He said 21.
21.
Oh, 21 yesterday? I thought I
Yeah.
had counted more than that, but still like twice what we had the week before.
Yeah.
And some of them visitors, like my brother and sister-in-law, who won't be back in the near future, and our sweet young man who's just struggling with a lot of things, I think, who is coming
Did
to.
he make it to the potluck?
He did not, well, not while I was there. Did he show up, Susan? Yeah.
Nope.
But he's trying to connect, and it's obviously hard for him. Ruth and Petra, you still have yet to sort of have your debut. Do you have questions or thoughts or trepidations about this?
I'm a nervous wreck. I don't do this type of stuff at all, and I really don't know how I got into it, but it's probably just my belief that I need to keep growing as a person, and trying new things are good for me, but I'm not sure how good it is. This one's going to be, but I'll holler it. I'll keep meeting with Sonia, and I'm sure we'll get through it.
Oh, and I really appreciate you saying that, Ruth, because we want this to be not just you all performing or providing something for the congregation, but we want it to be a spiritually strengthening opportunity for each of you as well. And let me tell you that for the first about 25 years of my ministry, I had to run to the toilet to poop before every single Sunday morning. It's like, it doesn't matter if you've gone through 3 or 4 years of seminary or other kind of training. Some would argue that if you're not a nervous wreck, there's something wrong with you, so know that even the most trained of us in your midst still have a certain amount of fear and trepidation when we stand up before a group of people who we're trying to lead and inspire and give hope to and pastoral care, like Susan said. So thanks for your honesty. We're here for you, and I think we're very excited to hear what you pulled together.
Thank you.
Petra, you came to us several years ago now because you wanted to be part of this crazy mess.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely not as much of a nervous wreck as she is at this point, but that's probably because it's a while off for me yet, like a month still.
Right.
So yeah, I'm more excited than anything right now, but tell you if anything changes.
Well, we are very excited to have you. From the first time your Mimi said, "Oh, my granddaughter wants to read something in the solstice service," it's like, yay! And now you are part of us and you cannot escape. Sean, how about you? Where are you in this mess?
Well, I think that I still have a lot to share, but I don't know as though a Sunday morning is the place to do it. But I certainly am not afraid to be a part of the preaching team in the sense of helping to lead spiritual worship, even if it's not on a Sunday morning.
Mhm. Well, and it's important that, that's what we're about, is this broadening, and you're carrying a lot of the weight of the outside of Sunday morning options, a lot. In some ways, much more difficult than preparing a 10 or 15-minute message. It's a lot of time and a lot of thought.
And I do want to continue to participate when it's appropriate in those kind of services as well. And I really enjoyed my opportunity with Sonia to speak on what we did when we did. And, as things continue to develop, I think there will be other times where it's appropriate to do that. It's just not my main focus right now.
You've got a few things going on out there.
Yeah.
Ought to be young.
And speaking of that specifically, I changed up my approach to trying to advertise for a Reiki share, and I have had an immense amount of response today.
Wow.
So I think I've corresponded with at least 14 different practitioners from around the area who want to either participate on a Wednesday or on a weekend during the day. And so that's exciting.
That's very exciting.
I saw that picture that was, the graphic that you put on Facebook with all the Reiki tables. And I thought, the sanctuary,
Well, that is the goal. That's the sort of space I'd like to be using for an event like that, because it should be something where it is a group effort, because it really is a spiritual practice in the sense of what's happening. So it's not about the practitioner, it's not about the person receiving the energy, it's really about what's happening on a much deeper, much higher level. And that's the kind of embodiment that I'd love to see, whether we're talking about, God in the sort of organized Christian sense, or we're talking about God and spirituality in much wider, broader sense. So that's where my focus is and is going to continue to be. And that's where I am called.
Mm-hmm. Well, it suits you well. I just, I've told this to people when we did the envisioning team. I've told it to the Well Collaborative, which is the term we're going with at this point, team. And I say to you that I come into these meetings thinking, what the hell am I doing going on a Zoom call at 7 o'clock at night when I've done X number of hours of other stuff? And then I listen to you and I practically want to weep with joy that we are this. I mean, just look at us. Look at our faces. This is an amazing thing. So Sonia,
Yeah.
you're the one who's been leading this charge, and it's a bit like herding cats. We did some time ago put together sort of a job description for you all, which I've lost track of. I have a copy of it in front of me. I haven't looked at it, but with some expectations and of how you all will coalesce, because as I think I said at the beginning, I love the different voices, but I'm personally feeling like we need to maybe have more of these meetings to get us to find the commonality, not just the different voices. And so that, part of herding cats is finding that commonality. So how are you feeling, Sonia, as the chief cat herder, and what do you need help with tonight?
Well, mostly it is, I feel, in terms of what I need, mostly what I need is better ways to coordinate more directly with people as I'm working with them. Had a couple of great sessions with Ruth, and one that Petra sat in on, where we went through some of the what the scripture passages were and some different approaches, and started kind of looking at hymns and like that. And so not everybody needs that type of interconnection and direct collaboration with me, but where particular speaking at this point strictly in terms of the non-clergy members of the team, I want to be able to coordinate better. I want to find out better ways to be able to coordinate more directly with you as you're doing your preparation for your service, so that you can ask me questions in the moment as they come up, and so I can kind of guide you through some of these things. What do I mean when I say we need to watch our inclusive language? We need to watch our formality, and how are we making that connection? Are we making that connection to other people? Are we making the connection to faith, as opposed to standing up and giving a lecture type of thing? So I would like to be more directly involved in doing that type of supportive mentoring.
So since they're not here to ask the question, and Ruth, you've expressed your anxiety about the process. I'm going to turn back to you to answer the question, and Petra too, even though it's not a Sunday morning that you're doing right now. You know, what do you know, Sonia's just said what she's and cogitating on that she feels like she needs. What do you need from Sonia? Or what, you know, even Karen and me and Susan, you know, if Sonia is our sort of focus for these things that we've said we're going to be committed to, you know, what do we want her to do for us to keep us on track? But I'm going to go back to Ruth first.
Well, I think Sonia and I did meet, and I think she really helped me. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and put it all to pieces because, well, for one thing, my hand's been so bad I couldn't use it, so I couldn't write or type. But it is better, and thank you, Susan. It was much better this morning. So
Great.
I'm actually starting to feel like I'm going to have a whole hand again. But I'm not wanting to be shy about asking for help. So I will.
And bless you for that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm far from being knowledgeable in all that field, and I don't have a problem with admitting that I'm having difficulties or don't understand, because it's not something that I do, and I can only improve if I ask for help to improve. So right now, I think I'm going to spend this week now and get going on really trying to pull some stuff together, and I will go see Sonia whenever she's in town, and or give her a call or whatever if I feel I need that. So
Parker is joining us. Hello, Parker. Oh,
hello.
You're there. Okay.
Hi, Parker.
I am recording this, Parker, so you can catch up a little bit, but I was just asking the question. It looks like you're trying to join two ways, actually. Are you on two different means of coming in?
No, I'm not. My phone decided to quit the app, so the other one you can disregard.
I'll kick the other one out. No, I don't think I can. I think you're just hovering in the waiting room over there. You know, what you feel you have received from Sonia's leadership in this, what we're calling herding of cats, and how you may want different or more, or whatever, in terms of leadership from her to be able to meet the goals that we've put forth in the quote unquote job description that you all received at some point. But anyway, where are you? How are you feeling about your role, not as our musician, but as part of this preaching team? You know, what are the challenges that you need help with?
I would say, as far as where I'm not as the musician, but as part of the preaching team, it's kind of getting me back into what I used to do a lot in my last church and over the years with some other churches. So, as I'm sure Sonia can attest to, I have a very weird process, and I come across I'm not sure the right terminology, but very explanatory, I think is how I want to put it. And then I go back through and then re-edit everything down, which, as Sonia and I spoke about the other day, is kind of just my process of doing it. But I think for me, similarly to what Sonia and I have spoken about before, is I need to work more on the inclusivity side of it, of using more inclusive language and kind of being more conversational off the bat, so to speak.
Mhm.
From the standpoint of not being the church musician, but rather a preacher, so to speak. In the same way that I am in every other thing, public speaking wise, it always takes a good 5-ish minutes for me to kind of get my bearings and not have the anxiety feeling.
We were just talking about that. Ruth was talking about her level of anxiety over doing this work.
Yes. I will say from my standpoint, once I kind of get into the groove of it, that's where my mind stops overthinking, so to speak. You know what, everyone's looking at me. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm talking about. I have my script in front of me. I'm good. And I know that no one here is going to judge me. And if they are, it's on them of how they're perceiving. It's not really a reflection of me. Fully, it's just one person. But from an anxiety standpoint, that's just me, and that's how I am with it all. No matter what it is, it's always like the first 3 to 7 minutes I have the anxiety filled overthinking side, but and then I settled into it.
You missed my description of the first 15 or 20 years of my ministry, having to run to the bathroom before I got out to preach. Thank you. You also missed my opportunity to tell this whole group how amazing I think it is what we're doing, the diversity that we represent, and the challenge of also having some focus and some common themes throughout our worship. You know, we've mentioned several times the inclusive language thing, and it takes a while to do that. You don't just start doing that overnight. And all of us who've been trained to work with that totally understand that. So that's one of our commonalities. One of the things, Sonia, before I jump into the next few minutes, I'm not sure we were done with you when Parker came in. So were there other things you wanted to chat about?
Well, one of the things that sort of I think will kind of help this sense of the cat herding aspect of it is I think one of the things that I haven't been communicating clearly or haven't really had a solid specific message about that I think will help everyone is I think what I will plan on doing is sending out a message to the whole team that says, here are sort of the general deadlines that we have, so that rather than just, here's a list of the things that I want us to be working on, to have sort of a deadline type of thing where X number of days before or after the service, here's what we want to see. Here's when we need to have the elements for the order of service. Here's when I'd like to do a debriefing. Here's sort of the range where I'm available to touch base, or especially with the lay leadership. Go ahead and set up that if your service is on X date, that the week prior before that, here's when I'll be in, we'll meet in person, or we'll do a Zoom or something like that, just so that we can hopefully, everyone feels more comfortable, that we have the sense that as much as we are able to, we have everything we need to have the service pulled together so that everyone is less anxious as Sunday morning arrives.
Mhm. And another note about the timeline is that Neil, who's just getting into the groove of our admin work, and will continue to do it mostly remote, just got offered and accepted a full-time job in Bellows Falls, I think. And so while Neil is a bit of a night owl and will do things at all times of the day and night, it will be far less stress on them to have, that service prepared, by Thursday or Friday of the week before you preach. And Neil just found out about that job today, so congratulations to Neil for that. It's very exciting.
Wonderful.
A lot of stress relieved there. And that was, I spoke to them about it, and Neil said, if it were Thursday or Friday a week before people speak. And I wanted to also speak to the putting together of the bulletin with Neil now here, finally having somebody regularly doing that work. I feel like it's important for each one of you, empowered by Sonia, to put together the program and get it to Neil yourselves. And part of what Sonia's worked on is this prayer book, and Petra actually worked on that a while back as well. It's been a while, but we've got some things that she put together that you can just pull from for the service or find your own, but to not have it circle through and not have Sonia having to do any admin work around the program, that you would work directly with Neil. You can also send it to Sonia in case she says, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" But not have her have any part of that administrative part of it, because of time constraints and frankly, interest, I think. I don't think you're particularly interested in putting the programs together to send off to Neil. And Neil's, coming on board quickly and has done a great job. But will continue to do a great job if that can be more streamlined and time effective.
So you're not saying Neil's leaving us with this other job? Okay.
Yeah, right. It's just that, that's why it's even more important to have this timeline, so that it's, I think it was Parker, it may have been you. I think actually I'll pick on you for a minute. I think it might have been you, though I'm not sure. Who Neil didn't have the program until like Saturday or something. So
yeah, that was me.
That was you.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
thought so. And shit happens. So if it's 10 days early, but it doesn't actually get to Neil until Monday or Tuesday, then you still got the leeway. But that would be the goal. Sonia, did I cut you off again? Or
No, I was just going to piggyback off from that one of the things that I hope will help, especially after we have some of the results from the survey that we sent out regarding aspects of the bulletin, I one of the things that I think will help the congregation and will help us is if we have a solidified bulletin format that we have an invocation, we have an opening prayer, we have essentially here are the standard elements, here's the standard order that we're going to do. Not to say that we can't change it, but that we can have the dialogue about changing it. But otherwise, everyone in essence knows, okay, here are the 5 things that I need to pull together to get out to Neil the Thursday or Friday before I preach.
And it was one of the things that has come back in the survey already. And I thought everybody had to put their name to it, but they're all coming back anonymous, so I don't know who's saying what. But one of the things that came back was that we've kind of slipped out of like having the words to the doxology and to the God be with you till we meet again or whatever benediction. That was you, Sean? Yeah, and I should have figured it was you because you're always calling us accountable to the person who doesn't know anything about us and walks into church. And I noticed that actually with somebody this past Sunday, and I can't think who it was. Well, I think it might have been Beth Ann, who's been with us for a while, but she's seen a lot of change. And I realized she was stumbling over the God be with you till we meet again. And it would have been helpful. Yeah, Sean.
It would also be helpful if we get back to having that introduction to the church, just letting people know, hey, the bathrooms are here and here in the bulletin. The bold stuff is responsive. And also just letting people know if you are not comfortable or can't stand, it's okay. And not, because sometimes I think people that probably don't need to stand are trying to stand. And by the time they stand up, it's all over. So
it's time to sit back down.
I think that very short introduction, especially as we set those habits for the belief that more new people are going to be joining us, we need to just, even when it is just the same people that are there every week, it needs to be said because it needs to be like that wash, rinse, and repeat. And if you're leading the sermon and you notice that the person that introduced or welcomed everyone didn't mention that, then the person who's leading the service that day, it's their responsibility to, if that didn't get said, to say those things before the service starts.
I'd like to ask something because I've thought about offering this and I'd like your feedback on it. We struggle with getting lay people to participate. I thought it was lovely when Jean and Jim worked together yesterday, and I realized we missed that. But we're not always going to have that, and maybe most of the time we're not going to have that. But could you imagine, and would it be helpful for me as the moderator of the church to be the person that welcomes people and does that spiel and introduces the concept that we are a preaching team as opposed to, oh, we just have Susan here today, that's.
Yeah, I mean, what happens is when you have someone that people don't know start a meeting or start a service and then build into the speaker, it creates a sense of third-party credibility that they don't know Tom, Dick, and Harry from a hole in the wall. A new person doesn't know who's ordained, doesn't know who isn't, whatever. So when someone stands up and says, hello, I'm Sean Walsh, welcome, this is the First Congregational Church of Claremont, bathrooms are over here, yada, yada, yada. And today, we're blessed to have Susan speaking. Susan is an ordained reverend, yada, whatever. It immediately builds third-party credibility instead of Susan just staying up and saying, okay, welcome everybody, we're going to get started. Just it's crazy what that psychologically what that does. And
Yeah.
it also helps to break it up a little bit so it's not the same monotonous. And then when everything is over, now they've heard more than one person speak. So they might come up to you after the service. They might come up to Susan. You know, it creates an approachability
Mhm.
that,
Well, part of the reason I offer myself, two reasons. One is I end up always talking anyway, because I always have some sort of announcement. And the other is I think about the various Jewish services I've been to, and it's usually after the service, not before, but after the president of the synagogue stands up and does announcements. So those are things in my mind, not to mention the fact that with little exception, I'm there almost every Sunday. So my ask to you all, do you like that idea? Would you support that idea? Would you rather we tried to train another group of lay people to do that? And
So
I'm not talking
first-
about doing the rest of the prayers and all that. I'm just talking about the
Right.
introduction.
yeah, personally, I think it's kind of like counting the money. There needs to be the person who normally does it. And if the person who normally doesn't isn't there, there needs to be 2 or 3 other people that just go, oh, hey, I need to count the money today.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
Bob is the one that's supposed to count the money. When Bob's not there, Doree, myself, there's a handful of us that
Mhm.
just say, whoever's here, the money needs to be counted either way. Like that's just how it goes.
Mhm.
So if Maggie, you take that responsibility on, and for some reason either you aren't there unexpectedly or you know you're not going to be there, someone else steps up and just does it because that's just what needs to happen.
Mhm.
But if there isn't an expectation that what's going to happen, it's just this constant. Like when I got there yesterday, we were out of bulletins. I went and printed 5 more, brought them back out, handed them out, and I had to go back in the office to print 5 more. So there
A
was
good
no
problem.
right, but it's like I could have just went and sat down without a bulletin and it wouldn't have mattered. And if it had been a new person that walked in and there weren't any more, they wouldn't. So it's just when you're a part of a community and everyone steps up and takes responsibility instead of going, oh, that's not my problem.
Mhm.
Like I didn't know how to go up and change the size of the paper to legal, and it took me 3 times to try and figure it out to get the copy right. But I just said somebody's got to do it, and nobody else was running. So
Mhm.
if we all as a congregation have that understanding that okay, Maggie's going to do this, but if Maggie's not here, there's a couple of other people that just
Mhm.
have to be willing to jump up there and do it.
Mhm.
Um,
Does that ring okay with people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And we've gone
And-
over. No, go ahead.
as by proxy, the people who are on the preaching team, this core group of people that these are their intermittent responsibilities, that's the group of people that just needs to identify themselves and say, oh shoot, Maggie's not here today.
Mhm.
I better check with Susan and Karen because she's here and see XYZ. And if Karen shows up and none of us are there, then Karen just goes, well shoot, I guess I've got to stand up there and dot the I's and cross the T's.
Mhm.
And that's just if we all accept that responsibility and say, okay, if Maggie's not there, we're going to do it. And then Susan and I look at each other and go, okay, who is it? Come on. Then we know. And then there's no question.
Mhm. It is.
Why don't we also plan along those lines to support that? Can everyone get to me a very short bio paragraph, and we'll put together sort of that basic instructions on how to work your way through the bulletin and remember to tell people where the bathrooms are type of thing. Let's put that all together and have a copy on the lectern, a copy on the pulpit. It's already there. So if Maggie gets sideswiped by moose on the way in,
I don't believe that there are any moose. I haven't seen one yet.
then flying turkey. Then if Sean is right there, Sean can go up to the lectern. He knows it's Susan. He can find Susan's bio right there. All the info's right there. That would be easy enough put together if people would just give 2-3 sentence bio.
That'd be great. So we are past my promise 45 minutes to the top of the hour, and I want to be true to that. There's a lot more we could talk about, but I want to give you, and I don't think we can talk about it tonight, but I would like to give you a homework assignment to think about and maybe write back about. I think I feel like we are struggling on Sunday mornings with meshing the lectionary reading, which, I think we're committed in general as a congregation to the the lectionary. That does not mean we can't deviate from it. But I think, personally, I think if we deviate from the lectionary, we need to, and this is what I want you to think about it because you may not agree with me. I think we need to keep a gospel lesson in there somewhere, and one that is incorporated, not just read as the gospel lesson, but that's incorporated and reflected upon. But it's hard. I mean, I'm recognizing it's hard to do what Sonia's been trying to do, which is have these thematic things, like, and Jane, bless her heart, that last night was the epitome of radical hospitality. So it's not just in the preaching, but in how we act. But how is that coming into the rest of the sermons for this next, until the next season comes along? And so the lectionary, the theme, and the gospel, which defines us, to me, as Christian, even though we explore all these other ways of thinking. One of the things I really enjoyed, so I enjoy you all, so I'm not, not picking favorites, but one of the things, and I've told Sonia this, I believe, that I really appreciate about your sermons is you will weave all this stuff together at the beginning. And I will get to a point, being a highly critical preacher, because we are of each other, I will get to the point of saying, Sonia, where are you going with this? And how are you going to get there? And then all of a sudden, she brings it back around with the Christian, subtle Christian sometimes, but still a Christian message that pulls all those other pieces together. So I just want you to think, what does it mean to balance the lectionary, balance the theme, and do some reflective, even for the lay people, biblical study of, if not the gospel lectionary, a gospel passage. So I would ask that to be your homework. Think about what that means. And I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what you're thinking, but it's time for us to quit tonight. And I'm wondering if anybody has any final words or question. I think we could do this probably for 3 hours and not get bored, but we'd get tired. Anything? Sonia, am I missing anything that you were desperately hoping we would get to tonight?
No, I think we pretty well hit on it. I just want to say thank you to everybody who commented. I have notes that don't make sense to anybody except me scribbled down now, so I'll try to circle back around and touch base with each of you about anything that you brought up, so that we can kind of scheme and dream our way through it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Last word? Maybe Sonia, you could say something that would send us on our way tonight to finish us off, a prayer or a thought or whatever, just to give us the courage to keep on doing this.
Let's actually just end with a little prayer here. Holy One, we thank you for the blessing and the beauty of the diversity and the divinity and the variety of the voices and the people and the souls who have gathered here to in our passionate, imperfect way, share your word with others from a place of depth and beauty and truth to the best of our understanding from our hearts and our souls. It's a gift you have given us, and we thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. Stay safe. Have a good night.
You too.
Yes.
Love you all.